Okay, so what what can you tell me about phylum Mollusca so far? Anything that you've learned so far about this phylum? Phylum Mollusca. They have tactile organs. Yes, that's true. Okay. They all have a radula, and just think of what all perforants have. They're sessile, osculum, and they're porous. Okay. They're filter feeders. All cnidarians have tentacles. They produce venom. They've got radial symmetry. All mollusks, they have a radula. And what else? Yeah, they're going to have an internal visceral mass, but those structures are going to be possibly different because we're talking about the clam when you're referring to the visceral mass. But what we want to say is what type of consistency do all mollusks have besides a radula? It's a protective function. For us, it's a skeleton, but they have a shell. That's the protective function. That's right. Okay, so we had left off with talking about this. You're talking about that visceral mass. You were saying you were referring to clams. That's true. Okay. So some are suspension feeders, like that of the clams. Then what two classes have we talked about in this phylum? That's one. Gastropod. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard it over there. All right. So the gastropods and the bivalves. Okay. So this is where we left off with yesterday. And this visceral mass, okay, is inside the mantle cavity. Okay. And we're going to see a picture of this shortly and try to make sense of that. Okay. So inside this body and manta, not manta, mantle. Okay. We want to talk about food gathering as far as what the bivalves would do. And in this case, we've talked about cilia before. Have we, maybe you don't have anything to write here, that's fine. Okay, so with this, okay, what does cilia have as a function in humans? The most common place we said was inside your trachea. Inside your trachea and bronchus. When we cough, the cilia may cause you to cough, but what's that cilia trying to do inside your bronchus? Out. Kind of does a sweeping function. Okay? So for anyone who's, in my opinion, known as a smoker of any type, typically what happens from my, not my experiences, but just what they would explain to me is they get up in the morning, and people who smoke, they typically start coughing because those cilia are agitated, and it's just an inflammation that they cough, trying to remove possibly some of that fluid or phlegm or something to that extent. It's just an opinion. Unfortunately, people thought, or scientists thought, that when we were growing up, my age and your parents, that smoking really wasn't that terribly harmful. Yes, there's nicotine in there, and that made you want to smoke, but the idea behind getting hooked behind or from that nicotine is all them chemicals that you're actually breathing in. So I think now, if you have parents that are not smoking now, and I don't smoke either, hopefully that's one of the things that we're not picking up as whether you view it as a bad habit. That would just be my opinion. Of course, we're not out there saying you shouldn't be doing this, because a lot of you are 18. I mean, not a lot of you. Some of you are 18. So with that, of course, there's some liberties that are afforded to you, because now legally you're looked at as an adult, but just would be my opinion. Just don't ever start things like that. But take it, leave it. That's just expressing an opinion. But anyway, as we move forward then, okay, if these cilia inside of a human bronchus do a sweeping action, it would be the same type of function that what we see in here. Rather than trying to remove something, these ciliated tracts, okay, are bringing organic materials to the mouth, okay? So it begins with these structures here, okay? What we call excurrent and incurrent openings. In other words, through the incurrent opening in a clam, you're going to have water and organic materials, like probably sand, maybe some algae and other aspects inside of that water. It comes in. These are filter feeders. These materials come in through this structure, okay? Then these cilia direct water flow over the gills, because what's going to happen is these gills will secrete a little bit of mucus on there, okay? And what happens then, okay, that will then move this mucus that's trapped here and move it towards the mouth, okay? It's maybe getting to be a little wordy. When we get towards the end of this chapter, then we'll certainly direct you into the right direction here. So this is a rudimentary form of filter feeding, because these materials are then trapped in this mucus then. Okay, I want to go through this, okay, and then there's something up on this on the computer that I want to show you. It's a specific picture, so we can make sense of what it is we are talking about. Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So moving forward. Okay. best way to do this? Let's go this fashion. 1, 2, 3, 6, 8. Perfect. I'll even do the leg work here. And page 193. Yes. Couldn't tell if that was a 5 or a 3. 193. Once you get these, please. We'll make sense of this, you bet. 193. Did you bring handkerchiefs? Bandanas? Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Okay, so on page 193, okay, you're going to see this clam then, okay, and notice it's got two pictures on there. The top has just a little bit more structures of the mantle covering it, okay. So the reason we say that, looking at figure A, or letter A for figure 10.23, when you look at the posterior side, okay, you got those two little arrows way over here, okay, on the right side, okay. And what are those two little arrows saying? You have one pointing in and one pointing out, okay. So what we see happening when you observe that, what do you notice is the difference between not only the arrows, one pointing in and one pointing out? What might stand out in your mind that you notice? Well, that's true, but is there sand coming out of the X-current flow? Or I would say food particles, I guess. It says sand and debris, but notice what you see with the arrow pointing in, okay? It just says in current siphon, okay? And then you have these little red arrows pointing down. But what is it that's on, or what do these gills secrete then? We just mentioned mucus. Why is that mucus important? What does it do? Yeah, it causes those food particles to stick on these animals' gills, and then what do these cilia or ciliated tracts do with those suspended particles? They guide them, sweep them, move them, whatever it is you feel most comfortable describing the organic materials trapped on these gills from this, and the cilia move it, sweep it, guides it along, however you want to say that, to the mouth, so then digestion can then take place. Okay, so one of the things that you'll notice that on that bottom one, letter B on figure 1023, I think, yeah, on that bottom portion, that's what you're going to be trying to maybe identify some of those associated structures. I think we'll probably get to that tomorrow, okay? And it's a little tricky on, well, not tricky, but as far as what the digestion is saying here, when these are separated, it's extracellular digestion, okay? Then once it's brought into the stomach, then the digestion then is done intracellularly, and then pass throughout the rest of the body, okay? So the main thing we wanted you to be able to see is that not only do the gills function in respiration, because as the water flows over gills in any type of animal that has them, whether they're arthropods, mollusks, or fish, the gills have a function of what? Respiration by diffusion. But in clams, the gills also have a function of what? Separation, food gathering, eating, however you want to state that these gills have two functions. One for food gathering, one for respiration. So again, particles come in through the incurrent siphon, They're brought in over the gills. The gills secrete mucus, traps those materials. The ciliated tracts or cilia sweep, move, or bring those materials to the mouth to where it then can be digested. Okay? I think we want to stop there and then continue on with this, I believe it was the cuttlefish, because we are not too far from the cephalopods. We've got 2 more slides until that happens. Okay, so we will pick up with this information probably on Thursday, because tomorrow I believe we'll try to do our best to be next door. Okay, so here is a continuation then of the cuttlefish, which then again, of course, is a cephalopod. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes.